Mercedes' new generation GL can be summed up as an SUV with S-Class qualities. The first generation debuted in 2006, so it's high time to roll out a successor. The GL's technology is close to the M-Class, but otherwise it's geared more to comfort. Standard is the Airmatic air suspension system with its maximum ground clearance of 30 centimeters.
Michael
Knoller of Mercedes-Benz asserts that the GL set the standard for luxury SUVs. Since the first GLs came out, they've taken the lead, especially in the key US market. He's hoping the second generation will hold on to it. The GL's luxury credentials are plated with plenty of chrome. A bit much by way of bling for drivers who still take the utility part of sports utility seriously. The headlights have also been given a design overhaul. The side view mirrors with integrated turn signals are typical for Mercedes. Axel Heix explains that Mercedes-Benz envisioned an S-Class of SUVs. So the developers concentrated on reducing fuel consumption, noise and vibration while enhancing the GL's agility. NVH, meaning noise, vibration and harshness, is where the GL SUV can hold its own with the famous S-Class. Features like crosswind stabilization and load recognition make for optimal handling. It's hard to believe the interior belongs to an SUV. Alternating matte and glossy surfaces and a variety of materials give the GL the look and feel of S-Class luxury. Unlike the M-Class, the GL is also available with 7 seats. Yet another plus is that everything works at the touch of a button, like magic. There's no need to yank and tug at the seats to climb in and out. Even the third row is easily accessible. Among the many assists on board, the 5-meter plus GL, including collision warning and attention assist, is a new one that's useful for tight parking spots: Active Parking Assist. Help with getting in is nothing new. This one helps the driver ease out. It works much the same way as when parking. The driver has to shift from forward to reverse and step on the gas. The car takes over the steering and does the rest. This gives the GL another couple of points for comfort. Even if the car's not made in Germany, its development was. Axel Heix points out that the car was developed in Sindelfingen and Untertürkheim, like every other Mercedes, following the very same specifications. And when the first vehicles go into pilot production in Sindelfingen, employees will come from the US-based factories to learn how to build them. That's the point where they make their contributions to the development. Then, in the production startup phase, Mercedes engineers go to Tuscaloosa to lend their support there. For all its luxury features, the GL still has no trouble driving off the road. The driver can choose among 6 modes, and its Airmatic suspension can raise or lower it 4 clearance levels. We test drove the 350 BlueTEC, a 6-cylinder diesel with all-wheel drive. It's 90 kilos lighter than its predecessor. The lighter weight, together with the new engine, helps reduce fuel consumption to 7.4 litres of diesel per 100 kilometres, a saving of 20%. But of course, all this luxury has its price. In Germany, the GL sells for around €72,000. Peugeot has introduced two fuel-efficient three-cylinder gasoline engines for its 208. The smaller version is a 1-litre VTI. It puts out a solid 50 kilowatts but still weighs 25 kilos less than the comparable Peugeot 107 engine. And it's economical too, using just 4.3 litres of fuel for 100 kilometres. BMW Motorcycles also has a new kid on the block, the C-Evolution prototype that's almost ready for series production. The e-scooter hits a top speed of 120 kilometres an hour and has a range of 100 kilometres. And short recharging times make the C-Evolution especially practical for daily use. Volvo's newest model is the V40. As car tester Mathis Kurat sees it, Volvo is bucking the current trend among car makers who are trying to fill more and more niches that don't even really exist. The V40 will be replacing other models soon to be phased out, such as the C30 and the S40. The V40 is debuting with 2 gasoline and 3 diesel versions. We tested the mid-range 110 kilowatt 2-litre diesel. The Swedish car maker offers its hatchback as an alternative to compacts like the Mercedes A-Class, the Audi A3 and the BMW 1 Series. The V40 easily matches its competitors in quality and workmanship. Mathis likes what Volvo calls the floating waterfall center console, especially since he's got room to store things behind it. He says it's a great gimmick, just like the optional digital instruments. He can even change their color and style if he wants. One setting is elegance, one is called eco, and another performance. He selects performance. This particular option costs €360 in Germany. Other options are the panorama sunroof and electrically adjustable leather seats, and the rear seat offers generous legroom. The V40 sports all kinds of containers and cup holders. Another nice gimmick is the light-up gearshift knob. The V40 got off to a great start with its interior design, but good handling is just as important. Mathis says the best seat in the house belongs to the driver, because the driver's the one who controls it all. And the V40 certainly rewards the driver in that respect. It grips the road and is very responsive. The beeping sound indicates that a sensor has detected another vehicle approaching in the same lane. It can even see around curves. It started beeping well before Mathis spotted the oncoming traffic. Volvos have a reputation as safety-conscious cars, and the new V40 is no exception. Michael Schweitzer of Volvo explains that along with a number of driver's assistance features, the Volvo City Safety System is standard on the V40. It's proven effective at preventing collisions at speeds up to 50 kilometers an hour on city streets. Also standard is a knee airbag. That's another novelty, a pedestrian airbag, the first ever in a series car. If sensors detect a collision with a pedestrian, it deploys in a U-shape over the A-pillars and windshield.
Den Fußgängerunfall so glimpflich wie möglich ablaufen zu lassen.
The exterior is Volvo's characteristic blend of hard edges and graceful contours. It all makes for a pleasing, harmonious impression. A shiny radiator grille lends it a touch of elegance. The sensors for the city safety system are arrayed at the top of the windshield. They can block the view of a stoplight when the car's right under it. An interesting practical detail is the 3 windshield washer nozzles. Slight overhangs give the V40 a nimble, agile look from the side, even with its 5 doors. The broad-shouldered, contoured tail lights are also typical of Volvo.
Kleines Detail zum Schluss.
Finally, Mathis Kurat takes a peek into the trunk. It's not all that big, with a minimum capacity of 335 litres. That can be expanded to more than 1,000 litres by putting the rear seat down and tilting a panel up. And he's discovered a price list showing an entry-level 25,000 some euros for the smallest gasoline-powered V40. Or 31,000 euros for this version. The test car version, with even more extras, quickly tops 47,000 euros. The entry price sounds reasonable, but under the bottom line, the total price is fairly steep for a compact hatchback.
Einstiegspreis klingt okay, aber unten der Gesamtpreis, der ist für einen Kompaktwagen doch ziemlich hoch.
A real treasure is tucked away in this garage in the Bavarian town of Tegernsee. An original Carrera RS. Thomas Müller searched long and hard to find one. He tells us that this is a 1973 Porsche Carrera RS, one of just 1,500 ever made. Porsche used the RS for motorsports and only planned to build 500. But Thomas says the car sold much better than the people in the marketing department had imagined. So in the end, they had to make 1,500. The Carrera RS is extraordinary in many respects. It was the first Porsche in the 911 series to sport the Carrera name. The RS weigh in at around 100 kilos less than the standard 911S. And it was the first Porsche fitted with a big rear spoiler. Engine performance was increased by using a sportier camshaft, modified cylinder heads and a larger 210 horsepower carburettor. The vast majority of RS buyers opted for the touring version, which featured a more comfortable interior. Thomas says the biggest difference between the RS and standard 911 from 1973 was the body. The RS was the first Porsche to feature a front spoiler made of plexiglass. And he says the car was nicknamed the Ducktail due to the look of its rear spoiler, which was designed to increase downforce and make the vehicle grip the road better.
Und dadurch bessere Straßenlage erzielen sollte.
Thomas says the car goes like the devil, but he admits that at very high speeds the front end can lift off. So drivers need quite a bit of courage to push this car to its limits.
Das Auto an seine Grenzen zu bringen.
Listening to the sound of the 6-cylinder Boxer engine is a treat in itself. Thomas likens the typical Boxer sound to poetry. He says that after work he goes into the garage and turns on the engine, and it makes his day. Now Thomas is driving his dream car to a Porsche meet. Fellow Carrera fan Harold will be there too. But unlike Thomas, Harold doesn't own an original RS. His RS is a replica based on a 991S, but it looks very much like the real deal. Thomas says the difference between the RS and a standard 911 from the same era can be seen at the rear, mainly the rear spoiler and the rear bumper. Otherwise, he says it's very hard to tell them apart. Thomas warns that there are lots of replicas around and that buyers need to be aware of that.
falschen Hasen gerät.
Harold explains how he converted a 911 into an RS. He says they optimized the performance of the basic 2.7-litre Porsche engine by increasing the cubic capacity, using a different camshaft and a flywheel from a 911 RSR, as well as making other small changes. Thomas and Harold built a slalom course on a closed-off lot to give their Porsches a real workout. Thomas says the attraction of drifting with the Carrera is that it's got a really great tail swing. The Carrera RS is now one of the most sought-after classic cars around. Originals in good condition sell for upwards of €200,000. Some in tip-top shape fetch close to €300,000. In the early 1970s, the Carrera RS was unbeatable in its class on the international racing scene. It rocketed from 0 to 100 kilometres an hour in just 5.6 seconds, a sensation at the time. It was also the first 911 to have different sized front and rear tyres. Thomas says the Carrera has a fairly high performance threshold, but it's also very narrow. There's a fine line between a nice drift and spinning out. So only experienced drivers like Thomas and Harold should ever push their Porsche to the limit like this. Thomas drives his RS home along country roads. Here on dry streets, the Carrera really comes into its own. Thomas tells us that the difference between his RS and Porsche's newer models is like night and day, and that even that fails to describe it. The RS has no electronic driving aids, no electronic stability program, no ABS, no power steering. Everything is done manually, just as it was in the 1970s. He says the physical feedback is part of the driving pleasure. And that's why Thomas Müller wouldn't trade his original Carrera RS for all the money in the world.